Okay, welcome everyone. Good evening and welcome to our August regular Board of Education meeting. We are glad you are here, and we are very aware of the weather outside as well as the warnings for our area. We will continue to monitor the weather during the meeting, and if it necessitates, we'll make changes to be sure to keep everyone safe. Please also remember to keep the aisles clear during our meeting to allow members of the school system and sheriff's department to move around. Also, except for when honoring our flag, our opening prayer, and when participating in the call of the audience, remain seated during our meeting. We hope to have a productive and efficient meeting, and your help is greatly appreciated. At this time, I would ask Ms. Bowie to call the roll, please.
Good evening. Pete Wildebohr.
Present.
Melissa Mason.
Here.
Josie Barnhart.
Here.
Pat Bradford.
I am here.
Stephanie Craybill.
Here.
Hugh McManus.
Present.
And Stephanie Walker.
Here.
Welcome, board members. I'm glad you're all here. Thank you for being here this evening in this rainy, nasty weather. We next will have the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Bradford.
I would move that we add to the agenda the memorandum of understanding for disaster relief that the County Commission approved yesterday to help us in the event of a disaster.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. We have a second. First and second. Any discussion?
I
Ms.
was under
Craybill.
the impression that we weren't talking about this because it wasn't ready to go. I had asked Acting Superintendent Barnes about this.
Dr. Barnes?
He put me off.
Well, Acting Superintendent Barnes handed it out this week,
Okay,
and we elected, board chair asked me today if we can move it along a little quicker because we have sort of a pending disaster right now.
that's what I thought. Okay,
Okay.
I'm good.
Anyway, okay. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Thank you, sir.
Where do you want to put it?
Okay, well, we've got to vote on it first. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Carried 7-0. I would say we put that under new business.
Mr. Chair, I have an
Ms.
amendment
Craybill?
also I'd like for us to consider.
Yes, ma'am?
Is there a way that we can combine the two consensus items? One is, it's section 17, and one is section 12 is where all the MOUs and things are. And then it looks like we put the personnel down at the bottom because we weren't certain we were going to have it. So I would just make a,
But we have something in closed sessions. That's why we have it there. So we have to go to closed session to discuss that and
Okay.
then come out.
all right, so then the next thing I had in my notes when I was taking them from the agenda review, that we were going to add something after, we were going to add an number 18, an item 18, after the consensus report. And I was thinking, and I went back to listen, but I couldn't find it. And my guess it was something that we were going to talk about in closed session, that we had to come out and, does anybody remember that? Like we were going to have to talk about okay.
We added the women's
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have written down that we were going to discuss the athletic director stipend and the paid versus separate versus co-ed discussion. And some of that was in regards to what was Ms. Walker brought up about the pay stipends, which I believe we said we were going to discuss in closed session. That's what I have closed down.
Related to women's wrestling, I think. It was related to women's wrestling, right?
No,
Okay.
we said we put that under new business last week.
Under new business?
Yeah, we did. I wrote it in right there.
Okay, so
Well, I think we all wrote different things about that, because I thought I remembered, and maybe Ms. Barnum can help us out, that we were, and maybe this will be discussed in closed session, that we were waiting to get a new athletic director before we talked about wrestling, or it was something that we were waiting until we had a little more information from other counties about, do we even have enough people to play and all that kind of stuff.
So that was the time that Dr. Barnes was talking about information that John Henry was pulling together regarding other districts.
Yeah.
Dr. Barnes.
At the board's pleasure, we can discuss it tonight. We can put it off till next week. What I would recommend, next month, excuse me. What I would recommend is doing some sort of polling with the other schools to see if there is interest in a women's wrestling team. We know that there is enough at one of our traditional high schools. The other schools, we may be curious whether there's enough interest to warrant a whole team in each location.
Mr.
Okay, so
Chair.
then I'm going to not make a motion to add something there since we can't even come to an agreement on what we thought we were going to add.
Okay.
And, I'm fine with waiting until next month to get some more details on
Mr. Chair.
wrestling.
Ms. Walker?
So I think that is one of the questions, if Dr. Barnes doesn't mind looking into, whether it is officially its own sport. And I know I've been told there's a school that actually is kind of operating that way. And I'm not going to say it's a Title IX, kind of area there, but if there is a desire to do it, what that entails, and
There has been a mix of co-ed versus separate teams all across the state. John was looking into and contacting the High School Athletic Association to see how much of each there is, and it sort of breaks in a lot of different ways, unfortunately.
Okay.
It can be, but I don't think it's mandated that it is. It really depends on the propensity of the student.
Okay. Well, I guess maybe let students know what they need to do to advocate for themselves on this portion of it.
Certainly.
Because there might, like they're saying, there might be a desire for that, but we don't know.
Sure. And if we did have a team, there may be more people who would try out for a team if they knew it was available.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second we've added this, so we have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. Is there further discussion? Did we do that or not? Maybe we didn't do that. Okay, we just amended it. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
okay, is there a second? Okay. Any other discussion? Jumping ahead, look at that. All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 7-0. I'm going to run through all these. We have, real quickly, we have the Reverend Armand from St. Luke's will be giving us an invocation remotely. Our national anthem, very excited about that. We have, I hope I got everybody's name right, Patty Knopf from Noble. Yep, well, 1 for 1. Robert Parker from Ashley, and Ms. Faison, our supervisor. Great, thank you all. Great. Well, thank you all for being here. They're going to be handling our national anthem, and I'm very excited to see and hear that. That's going to be wonderful. And then Ms. Bradford will be leading our Pledge of Allegiance. So we'll start with our invocation.
My name is Jermaine Armour, and I am the pastor of the St. Luke Church here in the great city of Wilmington. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, in some circles you are known as teacher. So we ask that you would bless every teacher in our school system and every employee in every school. Christ came to us not as an adult, but as a child. So Lord, bless every child enrolled in our school system and those who will soon be school-aged children. And Lord, bless our school board members with wisdom, insight, and love as they lead us in the development of our most precious gifts, our children. This we ask in the name of Christ. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now our national anthem. Thank you very much. Oh, really? Nice, nice. Next, we'll have the approval of the minutes. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, and then first and second, any discussion? Hearing none, all, please signify, all who approve, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All against. Carries 7-0. We are going to skip over recognitions, is that correct?
Correct.
So we will not be having recognitions this week, or this month. So we go on to our superintendent's report. Sir?
Sort of a different view from up here, isn't it? Obviously, weather is on everyone's minds tonight. With the outer bands of Tropical Storm Debbie dropping so much rain on the region, we did make the call Monday to cancel school for tomorrow and allow our staff to work remotely. Our essential personnel will report to buildings on Wednesday and Thursday to assess damage. The safety of our staff and our students is always our primary concern, and we're closely monitoring conditions to make a determination about Thursday. Our goal this year is to try to give parents, teachers, and staff as much notice as possible when calling a weather event. However, that means we may have to inform folks in stages, depending on how the weather patterns develop. Setting the weather aside, our schools are reopening, students and families and staff are being welcomed back, and everyone is excited to reconnect and are feeling energized for the promise of a new year. Codington and Eaton Elementary opened last month, Snipes and Freeman opened last week, and our specialty high schools were, of course, supposed to open their doors tomorrow, and our traditional schools will start on August 27th. Pre-K for Restart Pre-Ks will start on August 12th, and traditional Pre-K will start on September 6th. We want to thank our teachers, our TAs, our school leaders, our custodians, child nutrition staff, school nurses, bus drivers, and everyone who's working as a team to help get the school year off to a great start. The state budget has passed, and we're able to move forward with raises and changes in benefits. The average raise for public school salaries was 3% and will be paid retroactively back to July 1st. We are aware that this has been a difficult summer for all members of our community, and we are moving forward with the plan to maximize all funding possible for schools and student-facing positions. We do want to celebrate our schools that are 100% fully staffed going into the school year. We have nearly 20 schools who have already hit that mark, and we're getting more and more added every day. Next week, the board will host its town hall for new Hanover County staff. This is an opportunity for staff in every role in the district to share thoughts and ideas about culture and climate in New Hanover County schools, student behavior, and the qualities they'd like to see in their next superintendent. Invitations are being sent out, and this is a great chance for you as an employee to share your thoughts on these critical issues with the board. Communications Department is partnering with the New Hanover County to share the bus safety billboards around town, reminding drivers to be aware of school bus traffic and the laws as schools come back into session. We also want to remind all the parents and families that traffic can be an issue at the start of every school year, and please show patience and caution as you're driving in school zones. Our summer graduation was scheduled for tomorrow as well, and will be rescheduled for Wednesday, August 14th at 6 p.m. at the Snipes Auditorium. We hope that you can join us. And lastly, we'll be holding another coffee, curriculum, and conversation event for parents to drop in and talk about academics, ask questions about curriculum, child nutrition, transportation, special education, CTE, and technology. And this will take place on September 16th from 8 to 1 and from 4 to 6 here at the Board of Education. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I pretty much can say ditto, but I got a couple things to say. That was really good. That was very, very full. I appreciate that. My comments will be short. We welcome Snipes Academy and Freeman Elementary back into session. I was able to stop by both schools today and understand that my fellow board members, as well as senior staff and Dr. Barnes, were all there last week to open the schools. The schools, as well as our year-round schools, have opened very successfully. Last month, we were invited to our school systems leadership retreat. It was a wonderful chance to hear from and to discuss with our school level leaders, as well as our central office level leaders on a variety of topics. So it was a very, very great session. I really did appreciate that and the invitation. We also had multiple discussions and meetings concerning New Hanover High School. Mrs. Mason, Dr. Barnes, and I met with Mr. Rivenbark and Mr. Crudet to make plans. It was a very good discussion and planning session. More to come on that topic. We have been working hard as a team to prepare for the interviews for the interim superintendent. Finally, we are anticipating a great town hall following up from the recent climate survey. We'll be hearing directly from our educators about important topics such as discipline and the use of cell phones, the current state of morale and climate in our schools, and ways to improve it, as well as our educators' thoughts and wishes for future superintendent. That ends my much shorter comments, and at this point, we will turn it over to Ms. Mason, and we will have our call to audience. So we welcome those folks.
Mr. Chair, aren't we going to do recognitions and?
No, yeah.
Move those next month.
Next month. This is the, yeah.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Hopefully, we can get through all this and get everybody home safe, but let's get started. Natasha, too.
Good evening. Welcome, Dr. Barnes, and our new attorney. It's nice to see everyone here. I just want to get started. As of August 1st, the New Hanover County Schools and other school districts and universities across North Carolina have had to decide which side of history they're going to belong on, and if they will implement Biden's updated version of Title IX. I want to reiterate, you are not obligated to adopt these, especially right now when we have 13 out of 45 schools that are exempted from this policy. Currently, 26 out of 50 state attorney generals and organizations have successfully fought against these changes and exempted their states. Unfortunately, North Carolina is not one of them. However, there are currently 8 school buildings within New Hanover County School District that are exempted, and we have secured 5 more this past week, which brings our total number of New Hanover County school buildings exempted from the Title IX revisions to 13 out of 45, and we will diligently work to get all 45. Moms for Liberty has won an injunction against the Department of Education, preventing it from enforcing Title IX in any school building attended by the children of its members. This injunction applies specifically to the school building and not to the school district. To exempt your child's school building, you must be a member of Moms for Liberty, and you can join the fight at momsforliberty.org. However, just want to let everyone know that only 3 pieces of information will be shared with it. It's your state, your school district, and your school building. Do not feel like your name is going to be put out there. And these things are updated bi-weekly, and our school board is notified. This prevents the Department of Education from enforcing the new Title IX in your school's building, which allows males into the female bathrooms, locker rooms, on their sports teams, and if there's an overnight stay, they're allowed to stay in the same room. And if a female complains about it, then she may be the one up in trouble. We have 13 going on 45 schools. If you're interested to know which schools are on there, please get with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Leslie Posey.
Good evening. Did you know that flags are designed to be representative? But some people think that because a country or group's flag has a specific symbol on it, it can't mean anything else. The Mexican flag shows an eagle sitting on a cactus eating a snake. That's from an important myth in Mexico's history. The Belizean flag shows 2 men shaking hands, representing the positive relationship between the coastal and mountain peoples. England's flag is 2 crosses, those of St. Andrew and St. James. They represent important elements in British history. But I guess now eagles, handshakes, or crosses can't be used in any other way. The U.S. flag stars and stripes also represent history, the 13 colonies and 50 states. But I guess we're not allowed to use stars or stripes in any other way either. So where am I going with this? Obviously, the objection by some people to rainbows, because the LGBTQ community's flag is a rainbow. The rainbow has been a symbol of love and peace for a long time. Remember Genesis? I put my bow in the clouds to symbolize no more flooding. Isaac Newton figured out 200 years ago that the rainbow is light split into its basic components. We all ooh and ah when we see a full rainbow in the sky. Kindergarten teachers use rainbows to teach skills like colors and how to use glue and scissors because kids know what a rainbow is. None of these things are related to the pride flag. Displaying rainbows isn't trying to change kids. If I put a Belizean flag in my classroom, Does that mean I'm trying to make my kids Belizean? Or use a British flag to create Englishmen? Putting rainbows on the walls of the classrooms has absolutely nothing to do with the gay community. So it's time for this board, and many in our community, to ditch your homophobic ideas and do your job, creating schools that are the very best for educating our kids. Period.
Thank you, Ms. Posey. Linda Higgins.
Good evening. I listened with interest to the idea that while we're short on money, you're looking at buying cases for phones. Now, this is the same school district that does almost all of its work on, computers. I ask you, what do you think the kids can do on this that they can't do on this? My kids can even make phone calls on their computers. So, think about it. Unless you're planning on teaching technology finally, and teaching them how to use technology appropriately, you're just changing the tool for them to not pay attention. We can't afford to spend $1 million to change tools.
Christopher Morgan.
Hello. That was a great introduction. I feel like we're all on the podium wearing gold after that. I'm currently a parent of a student. I moved here in 2015, retired from the New Hanover school system, and this is my first school board meeting I've ever attended. And the reason why is because recently there are a lot of concerns that I have, and for the sake of time, I'm going to read a script. As a parent of an Ashley High School senior and a former educator with Vance, Wake, and New Hanover counties, I've become concerned with the educational processes of our young people today at all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. What concerns me are all the external factors affecting the internal minds and behaviors of our students. These concerns you can see on TV, read in the news, or turn on your phone and search and scroll. These concerns are often voiced to you when your child arrives home. Sometimes you hear it from your child's teacher, administrator, school counselor, or nurse. At times, it is brought to your attention by a neighbor, a close friend, or family member. You see it in your child's eyes, on their faces, and in their behaviors. As a parent, you feel it intuitively, and it's not always easy to deal with on your own. Our country, our world is at a place and time in history that is becoming increasingly alarming and unpredictable. No parent wants their child to become a criminal, serve time, face hardships, pain. No parent wants their child to steal, cheat, or kill. Lie to classmates, lie to parents. No parent wants their child to be a recipient of those negative acts either. No parent wants their child to be inundated and fixated with social media sites, become victims of false realities and TV idols that harm their already fragile mental state and deter from the social and emotional growth. I'm not a preacher, and I'm certainly not a saint, but with that being said, and the recently Governor Jeff Landry of the state of Louisiana mandating the display of the Ten Commandments in all public schools by January 25, I propose to the parents, teachers, and school board members that we display the Ten Commandments in all schools and implement them in the Bible and in instruction. Thank you.
Jerry Winsett. Jerry Winsett.
Good evening. At the agenda review meeting last week, Dr. McManus asked the essential question that Love Our Children has been advocating for 17 months. Referring to the practice of principals calling parents before a suspension determination is made, he asked Dr. Barnes, "So is that in writing?" And Dr. Barnes replied, "I will check, but that is our expectation." Love Our Children believes that expectations should be written into short-term suspension policy 4351. The sentence could be simple, such as, principals will call parents before a suspension determination is made. Now, the policy committee has revised other policies to meet their expectations. 4 principles, including Policy 3200 that states, principals and teachers shall limit displays in the classrooms, school buildings, ball fields, school grounds, and buses, such as signs and flags, to materials that represent the United States, the state of North Carolina, New Hanover County, the school name and mascot, post-secondary institutions, school-sponsored events, scholarships, military flags, family photos, student art, and/or the approved curriculum. That's a lot. We're just advocating for one simple, short sentence to revise short-term suspension policy 431 to include the sentence, principals will call parents before a suspension determination is made. And then please put it on the August 2020 policy committee meeting. Thank you so much for listening to me, and we'll be watching.
Christina Mercier.
Last month, you all were presented with mostly critical survey results. I noticed that some of you recognized and acknowledged your shortcomings and vowed to do more, and I've seen you doing more, like being at schools on the first day. However, there were others who heard the criticism and proceeded to deflect blame onto anyone but themselves, insinuating that the teachers were out of touch and ignorant about what goes on with the board. One board member even accused meeting attendees of pushing their political agendas on the board. Yet that same board member is lauded all over social media by sycophants for aggressively pushing a specific political agenda. As I was looking through the survey comments, one about the board stood out to me. There are board members who do not look at the educational system as a whole, but push their personal beliefs on the schools without asking questions, seeking truths. Please listen to what teachers are telling you. No matter your original reason for running for school board, what you are doing is hurting teachers and students. It's a shame that politics are involved at all in public education, but it's despicable when people use their position to actively hurt those they were elected to protect. I know you've already heard tonight about the horrible consequences of the Title IX updates, which of course were supposed to be focused on expanding protections to students who may be the target of discrimination. Well, think about it this way. If the survey made you feel picked on or the comments hit a nerve, maybe you should think about all those students who are targeted because of their gender, race, religion, handicap, or anything that makes them the object of ridicule. If you don't like the feeling, I'm thinking they don't either, so they need the Title IX protection. And in closing, I'd like to introduce synonyms to you. Instead of insisting you don't ban books, here are similar words. Discourage, block, suppress, crack down on, exclude, bar, disallow, hinder, halt, rule out, reject, squelch, veto, block, remove, and get rid of. So maybe it's time to look inward and ask yourself what you can do to improve the education for teachers and students, and quit asking what your fans would like.
Thank you, Ms. Mercier.
Thank you.
Barbara Garrow.
Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I was really surprised to find that only 14% of the people and teachers that took part in the staff climate survey felt supported by the school district with student discipline. Just 14%. Here's some of the comments they made. There are no consequences when you write a student up and students know that they're not going to get in trouble, so behavior keeps escalating. Far too much inappropriate behavior has been allowed to continue without any real consequences. Student behaviors are becoming worse and there are no consequences for their actions. Discipline is a joke. There are 0 consequences for student behaviors. It appears not everyone in the district is on the same page with student discipline. Discipline is not happening. The administration is not doing anything at all. There were over 120 individual comments about the lack of consequences. That I suggest you read those comments. So how is this school year going to be different? Love Our Children hopes that you do more than have a town hall. We want you to listen to the teachers and do a deep dive into the data. We want our children to stay in school where they can be safe and learn and thrive. Thank you.
Loretta Stackhouse.
Good
Good evening. Tonight, Ms. Varnum will present a preliminary update on discipline data. Here are some of the comments on that topic from the staff climate survey. There's a climate in our district of covering up inappropriate behavior. Principals are being asked to cover up the ISS numbers because the county wants to look good. I've heard from the administration that we're not allowed to suspend anyone unless it's for fighting or drugs. I'm not sure if this is true or not. I teach upperclassmen. Do not punish schools that need to suspend students that have multiple behavior referrals and are a constant disruption to the learning environment. Let's be concerned with holding students accountable rather than trying to look as though we don't have discipline problems. Some teachers do not use educators' handbook and have their own methods of discipline. The problem is it never gets recaptured. There are, of course, more comments like these. Please read all of them. So how is this school year going to be different? Love Our Children wants safe schools for all students and all staff. You can't make good policy decisions unless you have all of the data. Let's keep that in mind during Ms. Barnum's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Ogundelli. Alicia Ogundelli, is she here? Jan Landis.
Thanks for the opportunity to chat and represent our kids. I'd like to share a comment from the staff climate survey. One teacher wrote, and I quote, "There's a lot of discussion about discipline data, but I have seen very little investigation into the impact of reducing suspensions without any other supports in place for discipline. I am not opposed to reducing suspensions, but we cannot do that without putting some sort of intervention in place for students when they are not following school rules." 2 years ago, 38 staff members received training from Lives in the Balance in their collaborative and proactive solutions model, or CPS, for acquiring a more accurate, compassionate understanding of a child's concerning behavior. This group of administrators and educators represented 7 elementary schools and Lake Forest Academy. Love Our Children supports the CPS model as a positive alternative to punitive and exclusionary discipline. And for the past 2 months, we've been asking you to invite Ms. Varnum here to answer these 3 questions. How was the CPS model implemented this past school year? Did any of the schools see improvement in student behavior? And number 3, did they have fewer out-of-school and in-school suspensions? It would also be great to hear from some of the teachers who actually use that program. So how is this school year going to be different? If the CPS model shows promise, it should be implemented in a few more schools. Thanks.
Thank you. Veronica McLaurin Brown. I don't see her. Peter Rowich.
Only 6% of the respondents to the staff climate survey feel supported by you, the Board of Education, concerning school discipline. Only 6%. In the comment section, it appears that 2 people had similar concerns. One person said, "Please stop caving into the Love Our Children group every time they come up with a new hoop or challenge for you to jump through." The other said, "We have to stop caving to the Love Our Children group." Well, there are certain members of this school board and the policy committee who have ignored us or disagreed with us, but I can't think of a single time where you have caved into us. Is that a fair assessment? As a matter of fact, for the past 17 months, we've been asking you and the policy committee to revise short-term suspension policy 4351, and you haven't budged, not one bit. So, how is this school year going to be different? Well, you could revise short-term suspension policy 4351 and include the sentence, principals will call parents before a suspension determination is made. Remember, principals are already making these calls. We're simply asking you to put those 10 words into the policy where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you. Judy Justice.
Good afternoon again. Seems like it's a monthly thing, but it is. So, glad to see y'all. All right. I hope that all of you agree that our students deserve a quality public education so that they can grow up to be productive and happy citizens. Unfortunately, in North Carolina, our public schools have been under attack by a political party since that party took control of the state legislature in 2012. As you know, they control almost 2/3 of our public schools funding. In 2023, we had fallen to 49th in the nation. That political party, the same party represented by the current majority on the school board, has for the last 12 years intentionally undermined our public schools by denying them needed resources to succeed, with the goal of having the public believe our schools are failing. Here, the fact is that our county commissioners, also controlled by the same party, refuses to fund our schools properly to make up for the state's deficit, even though we are the 8th richest district in the state, and we have $1.5 billion from the hospital sale that was promised to us from Novant. There is an obvious pattern here, which even our staff pointed out in the recent climate survey, when 80% of the respondents said that you, the school board, do not understand the realities and challenges that public schools face. Many even said that you are too busy carrying out your political agenda to address the real needs of our schools. So this is what I, a parent, a grandparent, educator, and a former school board member, has to say to you again. Stop focusing on politics. Start supporting our public schools by working with the county now to make sure that we get the money promised to us from the hospital sale to provide the needed resources for our schools so our students can succeed. Please do the job you are elected to, please.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. Karen Clark.
The 7 of you have the power, the authority to propel, to actualize a new season of righteousness and justice for the children of New Hanover County Schools as you begin the process of selecting the next superintendent. America's foundation is a biblical worldview. I pray you stand on the Word of God no matter what. God's will for our children is to be under righteous educators and taught truth. 2 Timothy warns the time is coming when people no longer listen and respond to truth, seeking leaders with soothing words that line up with their desires. They will close their ears to truth. I pray that the Father of glory, the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, would impart to you the riches of the spirit of wisdom and the spirit of revelation, that you have discernment to fully understand God's will. You will not be easily shaken by trouble or led astray by novel teachings or false doctrines, but instead you will remain strong and always sincere in love as you express truth. For each of you is formed in His image, and every member has been given divine gifts to contribute to the growth of all. So wake up, you living gateways, and rejoice for such a time as this. Lift up your heads, you ageless doors of destiny. Welcome the King of glory, for He is about to come through you. I am the way and the truth and the life. Your kingdom come, King Jesus. Your will be done. New Hanover County Schools are schools of light on a hill that cannot be hidden. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Sonia Benetone Patrick.
Good evening. On July 3rd, 2024, the Republican Party released a letter expressing their excitement for the firing of Dr. Charles Faust, the former superintendent of New Hanover County Schools. The excitement comes from the Republican Party classified as a moment where the reversal of cultural change has occurred because their children were being educated about race. And what has played its part in history. Republicans want to further their systematic practices on society and their oppressive stronghold on education. A Republican superintendent replacement will push the Republican agenda on all children and parents, since Superintendent Faust was deemed to be a Democratic superintendent. We didn't know that superintendents were partisan positions. We must inform you that we see what's taking place, and we will not remain dormant with you jeopardizing our civil liberties. Schools in our communities are failing, the DEI efforts are being canceled, and women's rights are being repealed. We anticipate you deflating what's being said here as confrontational or even racist, but it is the only approach to your stance on what is happening in our community. And yes, New Hanover County is our community too. Black and brown people are taxpayers. We help build this country locally, nationally, as well as the state of North Carolina, and we will no longer tolerate your blatant racist disrespect towards us and our children. We will no longer tolerate the downplaying of our mental capacity as it relates to leadership and productivity in this community as a whole. We demand that the next superintendent represents all children and not just a political agenda.
Thank you.
And we will fight for our children by any means necessary.
Time is up.
Time is up.
Jan Boswell.
Good evening, Board. It's nice to see all of you tonight. I'm Jan Boswell with Moms for Liberty, and as you know, Constitution Day is September the 17th. So children across the United States will be celebrating that, as will our schools. So this year, just like last year, we're going to provide pocket constitutions for all the 8th grade students. We are partnering with 917 Society and Moms for Liberty. Our goal is to provide constitutional education on the guarantees of freedom and liberty that our Constitution provides. 917 Society and Moms for Liberty voluntarily do this because we love our country and we have a desire to educate our youth to be proud citizens. On another note, Moms for Liberty, we always give out an award. It's called the Joyful Warrior Award. Sometimes we give it to members. We do this monthly. But this month, we wanted to give it to one of our school board members. So I would like to present this Joyful Warrior Award to Pat Bradford, and she can pick this up. I'll leave it over there. Thank you.
Veronica McLaurin Brown.
Two years ago, short-term suspension policy 4351 was revised to say no student under age 8 or under grade 3 will be suspended out of school except in response to incidents involving violations of policy 4225, drugs and alcohol, policy 4331, assaults and threats, and policy 4333, weapons, bomb threats, terrorist threats, and clear threats to safety. Apparently, not everyone got the memo, because here are some comments from the staff climate survey. The board created a policy that states students cannot be suspended. We do not have a lot of recourse in being unable to suspend K-2 students does not solve problems. Taking away the ability to suspend young students was a terrible move. They can't be suspended because they're under 7. Those statements are absolutely false. How is it possible that a policy adopted 2 years ago that takes 18 seconds to read and impacts thousands of our youngest learners and parents is so completely misunderstood? So will the school board, central office, and school administrators accurately communicate policy revisions and new policies to the staff and parents next year? Parents can only advocate for their children's rights if they know what they are. Educators can only implement a policy effectively if they know that it exists and understand it. How is it possible that a policy adopted 2 years ago takes 18 seconds to read is so completely misunderstood?
Thank you, Ms. McLaurin-Brown. I don't see Ms. Ogundelli. All right, with that, called audiences finished.
We do want to thank everyone. Board members, do we need to take a break or can we go on through? All right, let's carry on through. Everybody good? You good? All right. All right, we'll carry on next with our information. First is cell phone bags. Ms. Bradford, we have you highlighted for this.
And are we going to have a presentation by the cell phone bag company?
I believe so, yes. I'm looking over there and I'm seeing it. We could make a motion to move it down the agenda, but it would take a super majority.
Well, if he's not online yet.
I make a motion to move the cell phone bag discussion to be on the town hall. So change it from A to C.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, again, this will take a super majority. All in favor, please signify, again, this is just move it down 2 places. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, carries 7-0, that is a super majority. We'll go on to Ms. Varnum with the NHCS discipline data update. Ms. Varnum.
Okay, I don't know if the attachments will be pulled up, so I'm going to go ahead and talk through the attachments, and we'll see if they come up. So the first of the 2 attachments is titled Student Behavior and Discipline, and this is really just a brief overview of the roles of policy in creating a safe environment for student learning, and that would be for the learning of the student with challenging behaviors and for the learning of all. Perfect, thank you. So of course we know that our goal is to help students behave successfully, and that's for each learner and all learners. So the reason for managing student behavior are to create an orderly environment, of course to teach expected standards of behavior, help students learn to apply and accept consequences of their behavior, and also supporting our students in developing self-control. So it's very important to understand the place in policy as we look at how that's carried out by staff. So Policy 4302, School Plan for the Management of Student Behavior. This plan we've talked about for a couple of years now, and we'll be moving into the 3rd iteration of these plans by each of our schools. This is how the particular school engages in the process in addressing student behavior. This is where our teachers and staff have voice in the process for their school and where parent participation is absolutely key. The next is important to understand our instructional framework. The academic and behavioral instructional framework has to be proactive and preventative, knowing that it's instructional. We're teaching behavior expectations, teaching consequences and the acceptance of those, teaching self-control. Then the next step is carrying out the disciplinary steps, the graduated response system. One piece of that graduated response is, of course, that parent participation, that parent communication and contact prior to moving to the next levels, which includes the exclusionary practices. Exclusion from the classroom might be ISS, might be being placed in another instructional support in the school, but another exclusion can be out-of-school suspension. But that parent communication exists prior on that graduated response. Also, it's important to note that the non-negotiables are the threats, the weapons, the injury, and a pattern refusal to be redirected, because that does create an unsafe situation. And as the board has seen these plans, each school's plan for the management of student behavior, you can see that it's a team approach. That does involve the staff and the teachers and the administrators and the parents in that particular school on developing and then evaluating their school plan. This is a continuous improvement cycle, and we will see those plans reevaluated again at the beginning of this school year. So next, I want to move into the particular discipline data that I can share. These are draft numbers. These are not verified, which is why I can't tease them out into a more disaggregated format, because these numbers still need to be verified by DPI, and then we have to go through a series of data checks. And I've even got an update for you because I've done another data check since submitting this one, and I have an update. So keeping in mind, this is unverified data. I cannot go deeper because that information would still be held for verification. I do want to mention the incidents entered into Power School in the 23-24 school year is 24,298. And that is an increase in the number of incidents entered. I will tell you that our process for entering discipline data, the standard operating procedure, that process for our schools is to enter every incident that needs to then be tracked and monitored. So we are suggesting that you enter in your parent conferences, that you enter in parent calls that are an intervention as a disciplinary measure. That way you can track that you've done that and you can follow your graduated response. So I'm not surprised to see that number of incidents. The next, our in-school suspension assignments is 4,719. Even though this is not verified data, just making a comparison, that's down by 158 from last school year. So that's 158 less in-school suspension assignments. I also want to clarify there's no directive provided by the district to not engage in consequences for students. So I do want to say that every ISS is coded as directed. The next, short-term suspension assignments. I want to clarify the term assignments. This is not the number of students who have received a suspension. That would be a duplicated count of students. This is the number of times an out-of-school suspension was assigned for an incident. So this is not going to be 3,116 students suspended. That's a less number of students because some students have had multiple suspensions, okay? The next, the reportable offenses. I want to explain what reportable offenses are. There are 16 that, according to general statute, require procedures for reporting from school administration and, if necessary, to law enforcement authorities. So of the 16, 9 of these are considered to be dangerous, and the others are considered to be reportable because of their impact potentially for criminal investigation. So we have, in the reportables, we have 162 incidents. Again, until this is further verified, this is our draft number that we have submitted. That is down 14 from last year. Moving on to disciplinary reassignments to J.C. Rowe. This would be our alternatives to long-term suspension. So for students who have engaged in persistently problematic behavior, but not necessarily dangerous behavior. So that being 113, that is down 6 from the last school year. And then moving over to long-term suspensions, those are for situations for students that need to be suspended for the remainder of the school year due to the dangerousness of the challenging behavior that was exhibited. And this is an example of data verification. The number of long-term suspensions for this past school year is really 4. But that number duplicated in the submission, which is a part of the data verification process. But I did catch that one because I know that one. I haven't engaged in 8. And that is up 2 from last year, because in the prior school year it was 2, this year it is 4. It is not 8. Again, I do want to caution using this information as published. It is not ready for publish. It can be shared in this aggregated format, but I cannot disaggregate it further simply because the data will be adjusted when there are errors. I do want to offer one last comment. New Hanover County Schools is no longer sanctioned for disproportionate out-of-school suspensions for students with disabilities.
I had a question, and I'll open it to any other questions. Where you mentioned short-term suspension assignments, if a child is suspended for 10 days, is that 10 of those 3,116, or is it 1?
That's a great question. It is 1.
Okay.
Because it is the number of times an assignment for out-of-school suspension is made. Thank you. It is not the number of students or the number of days.
Other
Great
questions from the
question.
board? Ms. Bradford?
First, just a comment. Incidents entered into Power School, 24,293. That's almost 1 per student. Just a comment, an observation.
And those, to clarify, those might be interventions that are listed in Power School for recording. So they are not all incidents for suspension. As you can see, the difference would be 3,116 for suspension. Yes.
So here's my question. How is it that teachers are getting hit, bitten, and having things thrown at them, and worse, inside our schools? How is it that's happening, and what is the result of it? What is the consequence for it?
Right.
Yes.
So that's going to vary by developmental age, by culpability. What are the other situations or contexts around that behavior? So number one, that is never something that we want to say, well, that just happens, right? And in my experience as a special education teacher for students with behavior disorders, I completely understand this. In a typical classroom, if you have a scenario where a student feels that that is an appropriate thing to do, that requires a very significant level of intervention that would involve administration, no matter what. If we're talking about a student with a very specific disability, that involves having an individualized education program with support staff around them to support what might be happening around that behavior. What are those triggers? What are the antecedents? Have we worked to prevent those? So overall, it is not an expectation that our staff accept physical treatment in the classroom from their students or from anybody. So it really depends, and I wouldn't be able to say there is a blanket answer. Aside from students with disabilities, the non-negotiables that are in the school plans are threats, weapons, injury, and refusal to be redirected. So for a typically developing student, that is something that administration is going to immediately pull out and resolve. I don't know an administrator who says, my teachers are getting hit and there's nothing I'm going to do about it.
Ms. Barnhart?
Thank you, Ms. Farnham. I want to just highlight one of the things you said. You said the number of times, not the number of students. And so when you look at the short-term suspensions, this is the total number of times, but not the number of students. Now, you said you were going to give us a higher view. Do you have how many individual students have been short-term suspended, and we can see that comparison?
So again, in the data cleaning process, I have a slightly different number from a different report, which is what you have to do in the data verification, pulling reports from multiple places and allowing the state system to comb through the various cells that are included in this type of massive data project. I see in a different report a slightly different number of short-term suspension assignments, but not terribly different, 3,147. So that would be 31 different. That might be duplicates. But overall, in that number, I see that about 1,600 of those are unique students, meaning that less than half of those are repeat students in that calculation.
Thank you. And again, this does not show the interventions that have happened with our students prior to the result of a suspension. I know that, the board a few months ago had changed the expectation to have consistent expectation and discipline because we want to support our staff and understand that there should be interventions happening and being adjusted. And I'm going to speak to, we were invited to a principals meeting a few months back, and myself and Ms. Mason, Ms. Bradford were able to attend. And specifically in regards to the changes that Love Our Children had asked about having a phone call prior to an investigation happening. Our principal said, please do not do that, and I want to tell everybody why. The reason being, if, I'm just going to use my colleague here as an example, if we were in an altercation and I decided to punch my colleague in the face and she was crying in the corner, by tying the hands and saying you have to make that phone call prior to the investigation, the administrators would no longer be able to comfort that child as well as talk and dissect and go into questioning where the students. I'm sharing with you what they shared with us so that you guys understand where it's coming from. So to understand that an investigation is questioning a child of whatever happens. So this is something that we need to understand. We want to support our staff and our administrators and understand that they are working diligently to intervene prior to this result because we do not want to see students suspended, but it is an option that we sometimes have to utilize in order to keep our schools safe.
Ms. Mason?
You've mentioned a few times that this is not finalized data. Do we know how, I know this is a state level type thing, do we have like an estimate as far as when we think it might be finalized?
So we normally engage in the data verification process through August and September. So I would say definitely mid-fall seems right. But again, it's out of my hands. It's with data verification at DPI. But we're still doing the data verification process with them.
Any other questions?
Well, not so much a question, but I know we're going to address some of this at our town hall coming up, the behavior in schools, and I think that will give us an opportunity to really listen and hopefully come up with some solutions that will be helpful to staff. Because I read the climate survey too. I mean, nobody wants students suspended. I mean, in an ideal world, we would fund our schools 100% and we would have more positions to help. But we do need a strategy, I guess, to figure out how we help both students and staff. So I just wanted to point that out. We are going to talk about that hopefully at our time.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, sir.
I just want to cycle back to Julie, something you said in the beginning, that discipline serves two purposes. It's to ensure the safety of the school building and also help a child learn new and better behaviors. So we asked about how can we support our teachers better. The more we can support them, also by helping them learn skills in de-escalation and how to deal with crisis management and things of that nature will help our teachers work with children more effectively as well. It's a lot of, there's a lot that teachers have to do every day, and discipline is only a part of the work that they do every day.
Yep.
But I want to circle back to your first statement of what it's for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martin. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Going on to our town hall, we mentioned that several times. I think all the board members have a sheet in front of you that kind of outlines some things. As I mentioned before, we are very excited and looking forward to a great town hall next week. And the three areas, as I mentioned before, behavior in school, including cell phones. We'll have some board members that'll be leading that discussion. And there'll be two rounds, two full go rounds, 45 minutes each time. The second will be climate in schools. And again, I always ask when I was a principal, bring your concerns, but also bring, solutions. So hopefully we have some great discussions there about how we can improve the climate and the morale of our teachers, teacher assistants, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, everyone, administration. And then the third rotation will be qualities that we would like to see or they would like to see in the next superintendent. The board has discussed that. We have some ideas, but again, we definitely want to hear from our educators on what they would like to see so that we can work together to get an exceptional person in that role. So Dr. Barnes will be kind of doing a little EMC stuff at the beginning and the end, but we're very excited about that. And we'll have a quick turnaround, especially for that last group, the qualities for the superintendent, because we will be interviewing in the near future on that. So any questions on that? Ms. Craybill?
Yes, the couple things.
Okay.
On the notes that we have, cell phones aren't mentioned. So I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page for rotation number one.
Right.
Talking about managing student behavior, it doesn't mention cell phones there. So I just want to know if we're going to be talking about, I'm not opposed to it, but if this is our instructions, then I think we should all be clear.
Yeah, I think we just need to add cell phones in there, if that'd be okay? Yeah, just to do that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sort of widening the funnel, but I can certainly.
Thank you for pointing it out, Ms. Craybill.
And then another one, I really would like for us to consider in the third category, where it says qualities desired for a new superintendent. What is before us right now is the interim superintendent. And one of the things we had talked about was we wanted to hear from our staff about the interim before we started interviews. So I want us to consider adding in interim there, because qualities that we might be looking, and focus areas and philosophies and skill sets that we might be looking for in an interim could possibly and probably are different than what we might want to have in a permanent superintendent. So I would like to interject that in there too, if that is okay with the rest of the board.
Does anybody have objection to that? No, I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Well, both, but we have plenty of time to talk about the superintendent. We don't really have plenty of time to talk about the interim. You know, we need to kind of get going on that. If somebody wants to throw one in, I think our focus really should be the interim, because that's what we're embarking on in the next couple weeks.
And I think, and I'm just going to say this out loud, I think that, you know, we also, before we get to the permanent superintendent, I think we need to, you know, get all our stakeholders, our parents,
Right.
our grandparents, community members and all that kind of stuff, and hear from them also, in addition to our educators. But I think maybe listen to both, so this would be a great opportunity to hear about, you know, the interim and maybe the full-time ones. I think we'll have enough time to do that. So, great.
So can I ask another question? So the, is this going to be live streamed? Because you can't really hear, when we have our town halls, they can only set up at one table. So, and I'm just thinking, a teacher may not want to be live streamed, you know, to talk. I mean, they're not going to say anything different, maybe, but maybe they won't say anything at all.
Right.
You know, if they have a
think that's
TV
legitimate.
camera in their face or a
legitimate.
microphone in their face.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Barnes, you want to speak to that?
We have decided not to live stream that meeting specifically.
Okay, and I
We
just.
will have a sort of a spectator row there in the back, but we do want to schedule, there will be more times to discuss about the superintendent with the rest of the community as well. This one is isolated for staff specifically.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Mason.
just wanted to make sure that folks felt comfortable,
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
comfortable as they can feel. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Graybill.
And
Mason.
I may have missed this at some point. It says school board members. Are we choosing which group we're in? Or is that a,
I'm going to be choosing that for you.
okay, so.
Aren't we pulling sticks like they do
That's going to be
in class?
Mr. Wilbur. All right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
We're rotating, right? So it doesn't really matter what group
Well, but
we're in?
the board members would be rotating, so
Right.
you'd have your topic, but we'd have, yeah,
Stay with the time.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, just stay with the topic. Right, now we're there, because, you know, especially the third one.
We stay with our topic?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that stinks. Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Graybill.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That was my inner self.
Mr. Chair, I brought this
speaking.
up at the agenda review, but I also just want to make sure that we have pre-K representation in our staff as we're going through. I don't know how we're choosing our staff to invite, but just make sure that we have a cross-board representation from pre-K, elementary, middle, and high school, along with the classified staff that you have listed, so.
Did you want to go here first? Did you have your hand up?
Ms. Walker.
So are we going to have someone at our group taking notes? Oh, right on.
Yes, absolutely. We'll have notes. Ms. Bradford.
No.
So, let me understand this. One or two board members we'll have rotation, one behavior in schools.
It'll be 2, 2, and 3, obviously.
So one group will have climate in the district, and the third group will have qualities desired for the next superintendent.
That is correct.
So we are going to find out what happened at the other tables. How?
We have no takers. And we're also, obviously, not obviously, I don't mean to say that in a negative way, but the third group, we're going to turn around very quickly and get that word out to everybody because we'll be interviewing the short term afterwards. So obviously, we want to get that information to the entire board shortly thereafter.
Can we define the shortly thereafter? Because I thought we were kind of hoping that Tuesday we get it, give the
Wednesday.
folks a chance to process it. They don't have to go home and do it tonight, and do this homework, that they have Wednesday to do it, and then we get it out to us by Thursday. May I request that we switch groups for the second time?
Absolutely.
So
Yes.
that we can at least get a chance to hear comments on two different questions,
You got it.
more to share with each other.
100%. You got it.
And of course, that's at the board's discretion. The reason we set it up this way is because we know that our staff may have a vested interest in more than one topic. And so really, it was like, who do we get to make sure we hear all from? And it was better to have the staff have more opportunity to speak than to have to go over the same ground with different board
So did
members.
that just change? We now
I mean-
have 2 slots?
Well, you'll have there's 2 full rotations.
Mhm.
So one rotation, say for instance, you are taking a shot in the dark, you're on discipline in the first rotation. Then the second rotation, you may be on qualities for the new superintendent.
Okay.
So you'll have, your
That's
team
what
will
I
stay
meant.
the same, but you may be, you will be
team
at 2
moves.
different topics. Your teammate will be the same.
Cool.
Your teammates, okay?
So,
Oh,
Mr. Chair,
Miss,
one more question for clarification, just, I think we are, well, I don't know if we are all together on this or not, but
We can draw straws.
this is a listening, from my understanding, from our discussions, this is a listening session. So people will be kind of like talking at us, but we're not going to be like answering questions. Like they say, why don't you do this? We're not going to say, we'll say, oh, that's a great idea. Thank you. We write it down. But we're not really engaging back and forth in dialogue on this, right?
That's right.
Because it's more or less so we can get more people
right, we want
to
hear from
give us stuff than us trying to interject our feelings and thoughts and
right, and I think that's
opinions.
why what I said before was crucial, is that not only come in, I'm going to use the climate one, not only come in and say, well, the climate at my school isn't great. Okay, well, how can we as a board help to improve that? How can central office
Right.
help to improve that? So, so we may facilitate it, but we're not going to, yes.
Okay.
I guess we'll listen to
Thank
the
you.
left
This
one.
looks good.
Yeah, good, thank you. Anything else, board members? Do we have them? We do have the cell phone folks on, so let's go back to A, which is cell phone bags. Ms. Bradford.
Okay. We have been talking about discipline and Team 2 on the Safety Committee. And we thought that since Brunswick is doing a pilot, we'd get this guy to tell us about the phone bags and see if it's something we wanted to do. We found out from the Assistant District Attorney, actually, I think I found out from some of the media, that they're using them in the Wilson Center now. When you go in, you put your phone in the bag. So it's obviously succeeding, so we're going to hear what this guy has to say. And his name, I don't remember.
to tell us about the phone bags.
I think we did. There he is.
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me right now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Fantastic. So I had to switch there. I think you're currently muted on your side, so I was watching the YouTube broadcast just to understand when I am presenting. I sent in a presentation to accompany me, and I'm wondering if that's available or if I'm able to share that on my end. Although I can't hear from your end.
We have it.
Thumbs up, and he can't hear us. How are we going to ask?
But he can see our thumbs up. There we are.
Your thumbs up now, and now I can hear you.
Oh, you can hear us now too. There we go.
Perfect. Let me see. Is my presentation able to be shared at the same time, or should I find that on? All right. Okay, perfect. I will start at the beginning. So, introductions, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to allow me to present, share information about Yonder. We are seeing a significant amount of interest in districts near you, in states around you. I've been listening to a few board meetings. Really, cell phones and culture are significant issues, so I think this is a very appropriate time to present. So Yonder, starting from the beginning, we minimize distractions, at the same time maximize learning. That's the first slide right there. And we can skip through it. Start at the beginning. In this presentation, I'm going to cover what the Yonder program is, where we've developed from, highlight some aspects of our program, allow a video to play that will kind of clarify what the day-to-day looks like. I'll go over some statistics on the benefits schools and districts have seen while partnering with us, and if time permits, try to do my best to allow for some questions and answers, because rarely do I present to a board and there are no questions at the end. So happy to jump to the next screen. To start from the beginning, Yonder, we've been working with schools for the last 10 years. We actually started working with schools on the West Coast, outside Silicon Valley, where individuals making cell phones and social media also recognize the need to create phone-free spaces in schools. And in the last 10 years, our presence has grown significantly. As you can see in the screen, we work with a little over 1 million students daily, and in about 24 different countries. So we started on the West Coast, but we saw significant growth when other countries started creating legislation to regulate phones in schools, primarily in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. The government said no phones in school, but did not create any sort of mechanism to make that effective. Yonder was in to support the schools, both with the tools we offer and with the expertise of the last few years of rolling out our program. As you can see, we are now spread out significantly across the US. Next slide, if possible. You can just skip that one, I can jump right into it. So yeah, minimize distractions, maximize learning. There's also quite a few other benefits, but we always want to highlight what Yonder is in a way, but instead providing for both students, teachers, and school leaders the best possible culture and situation to create most learning. So we can jump to the next slide if possible. Perfect. And so, like I said, I've been listening into your district's board meetings, reading the news, and I'm certain that you've been doing similar things to other areas across the country. And the news is very consistently packed with articles both highlighting the issues surrounding cell phones and other districts' attempts or successes in dealing with them. The last board meeting about a week ago, we were scheduled to speak, timing was off. It would have been a very appropriate time following the DA's presentation on cell phones being used very negatively in school. That fourth article is something we're seeing very consistently happen with that noted spike of, in the last few months, significantly more students violating cell phone policies almost unconsciously, as they've built habits around cell phones that make them very difficult to deal with the cell phone policies presented to them, usually requiring student will or willpower to keep their phones off in a way. The next slide is going to highlight one of the more important people when it comes to speaking about student Surgeon General. He stated twice, both through his platform in the US government and recently in an article in the New York Times highlighting the possible damaging effects that social media has on the development of youth and what he posted or he wrote about in the New York Times was arguing the need to create warning labels on social media. People, experts have recognized and are continuing to recognize that social media's grasp on students and their development is beyond normal ideas of what students are dealing with. And students themselves maybe don't have the ability to put their phones down themselves. And so we and school leaders are looking to another step in creating sustainable, effective cell phone policies. And so that's a big part that Yonder comes in. I think when we think of cell phone policies, there's a lot of other opportunities or possibilities that school districts consider. Looking at this slide, Jonathan Haidt, one of the foremost leaders of the regulating cell phones movement, wrote in a book, The Anxious Generation, that while there other methods exist, they are not as effective. Simply banning phones or collection methods don't necessarily work for a variety of reasons. And we can look at the next slide just to kind of see where other districts stand on this issue. And I think that last sentence really highlights what other districts are currently seeing. A lot of schools have a cell phone policy, but it's very hard to regulate. And when the emphasis is put on the student to be the one responsible for keeping that cell phone away, it sounds great. In practice, it's incredibly difficult and sometimes unfair to ask the most dedicated student to keep those notifications in their pocket or ignore their parents when they're texting them or ignore their friends when they ask, let me see your phone really quickly. So there's all these certain situational things that come out, if not necessarily daily, but hourly, that students have to be responsible for. And that's really where the Yonder program steps in. So we can look at the next slide and I can talk about exactly what Yonder is, how we support districts and students, and a little more about our program. So if you looked into Yonder at this point or heard about us from neighboring districts like Brunswick County, I think the first thing you're going to think about are these gray neoprene pouches. And now this is a locking pouch that individuals can keep on them, but it's locked, so they can't quite access it. This helps schools add a layer to a cell phone policy that says phones need to be off from bell to bell or arrival to dismissal. The next slide go into a little more depth about what the Yonder program includes. I think a lot of people or a lot of districts want the pouches and say we can figure it out from there. But we've come to realize that in the last 10 years, we have the base and the expertise to support districts in this rollout plan. So the first step about pouches and all the equipment we offer, we really want to start in that second tier, that training and support, working with districts to provide the parent letters, the student policy procedures template, giving those staff presentations, working with about day-to-day logistics, implementation plan, working with that on-site implementation before schools and districts start using these lockable pouches. We also want to make sure that students are as engaged as possible, and so we're rolling out resources that districts can provide, from lesson modules to presentations to resources for parents and students when they're considering why is a district looking at a policy like this, what has influenced them, or what is the research saying when it comes to cell phones and positive or negative effects they're having on students in school. The next slide should be a video, and we'll see if it can play. This is just going to give an even more in-depth on exactly how the Yonder program works on the day-to-day. If there's no sound, that's okay. I can easily go over it as well.
No sound. There's no sound,
Okay.
sir.
Perfect. So I'll just talk about kind of what Yonder looks like in action. Over the last 10 years, we've come to realize the most effective way to roll out our program is through a tier 1 intervention approach. And that means working with districts to provide one of these pouches to every single student. We recommend districts assign the pouches at a 1-to-1 in 2 methods. The first way is by writing a number in Sharpie for a permanent yet reusable solution to identify a pouch to a student. And the second way is through a wallet sleeve attached to the pouches, putting a name part in that wallet sleeve. So that creates a high level of accountability and allows districts to quickly identify which pouch belongs to which students. We've come to realize that 1-to-1 assignment and that higher level of accountability is necessary in ensuring the pouches last, not just for 1 year, but for multiple years, making our program as sustainable as possible. I'll quickly go over the day-to-day. Starts with students having their pouch, and as they enter the building, they take their phone, slide their phone in the pouch, and they can lock it real quickly just by pushing this little button in. Now a pouch is locked or closed. Students can then maintain possession of their phone, but they can't access it. And that is the #1 benefit of our program over other alternatives. We see a lot of school districts have policies in place that are very teacher-driven. So when a student walks into a classroom, it's up to the teacher to create that phone-free space. Sometimes they have tools, either wall hangers or boxes, they ask every single student to put their phone into. Now, we hear that works originally. However, over the course of a school year, it's very difficult to be that force or have that power struggle against a student when it comes to using their cell phone. And not all teachers are able to maintain the same level of classroom management. And if one teacher has a policy or no policy in their classroom, it's very tough for that teacher next door to also maintain a strict no cell phone policy. Yonder does its best to remove the expectations from the teacher of being the cell phone police and condenses them to one point, the beginning of the day, when all students put their phones in the pouch. Additionally, it takes a significant amount of pressure off a school, or if they have a total collection policy, say all students put their phones in at the beginning of the day. Once again, that puts a lot of weight on the school to be responsible for every single cell phone, which is a bit of a liability issue. At the end of the day, when it's time to return cell phones back to students, Yonder provides these mountable unlocking stations. So this is a wooden mounting plate that can be attached to walls, tables, with a metal magnet screwed into the top. Now, we recommend about one of these for every 100 students walking out of a door to maintain flow, and function is very simple. Once again, the main benefit. Students have their pouch, they walk by, if it doesn't open on contact, they push the button, but many students will quickly learn that they can just tap their pouch on this, and it'll pop open. They take their pouch with them, take the phone out, and the process repeats again. Other things the Yonder program provides are these handheld unlocking bases. Now, these are going to be great for school admin to have, maybe nurses, if there's an officer on site for field trips, or if a teacher writes the use of a cell phone or cell phones into a lesson plan. So basically, a flexible solution. The last kind of exterior element I'll add is there are students who have a medical need to access their phone. We provide medical pouches. So this is a pouch similar to a locking pouch. However, instead of a locking top, it has a Velcro top. And so students with a doctor's note, if they need to check their blood sugar or have some sort of other issue that mandates consistent phone use, this maintains that element of tier 1, not having them stand out for having some sort of specific need. Happy to jump to the next slide. Perfect. So a lot of districts have their own specific why about why they choose Yonder and choose a more robust, sustainable cell phone policy. However, our partners see benefits in kind of all aspects, and I'm sure you can agree that cell phones play a pretty big role in a lot of school culture. So our partners certainly recognize student behavior increasing, things like more engagement, eye contact. One interesting side effect we've seen is that lunchrooms become much louder and students start eating more. Historically, there's been a fear, or recently there's been a fear, of filming while eating and then having that information posted on some sort of secondary site. Academic behavior, achievement gaps decrease. And the last one is another interesting part. I think a lot of districts consider their eldest students to be the most responsible and thus the most capable of putting their phones down. However, in a white page that we were able to produce, we saw the highest growth in test scores actually come from the 11th and 12th graders, meaning those students eldest in a school saw the most benefit when it came to closing that achievement gap. That middle part there, mental health, is very significant. We've had school partners report that when tested, students were receiving upwards of 60 notifications in a single class period. Now, these students don't know what those notifications are. They just know they're coming. And they could be a variety of different things. And it's a bit overwhelming to process or consider that amount of information while trying to be present in a classroom or with their friends. And so when we're able to change the habit of feeling like you need to be on your phone at all times, schools have reported massive cultural differences, as you're kind of seeing in these testimonials. We can jump down to the student success rate, and this is just going to kind of reiterate, but show you the numbers of the white paper we were able to in the next slide. So this is just showing students' achievement differences while getting that C+ or higher over a single year. Obviously, students in all grades are seeing a pretty positive growth, but the students in their last 2 years of high school saw that as a percentage. We can also look at the next page and see the impact on student behavior, and now these ones are even more drastic. It feels like cell phone issues can be easily diminished or it's not a big deal. But when students are no longer responsible for having to keep their cell phones away, they understand expectations, and also other stakeholders understand expectations. We see massive changes in student behavior over the course of a year. Now, some schools report spikes in the first few days. With any new policy, we see that be consistent, but then an overall massive change in the positive direction kind of across all. One that's not mentioned on here that we found very interesting is an increase in attendance that schools are seeing when they partner with Yonder. The interesting reason being is before using Yonder, students could skip school, contact their friends because their friends had access to their phone in a school building. Once that school started using Yonder, those who skipped school could no longer talk with their friends through their cell phones. So they had to attend if they wanted to ever see their friends or communicate with their friends throughout the day. We're seeing a lot of interesting side effects like that when it comes to student behavior, change the culture surrounding cell phones. The next slide is just going to kind of go over some more educational testimonials, talking about the reasons that individuals decided to choose Yonder and the benefits they saw. One that I don't know is quite mentioned here, but I believe it's mentioned a bit later, is the impact that teachers saw when it came to regaining classroom time after using Yonder. One example I'll give is after we partnered with Akron Public Schools, which is just south of Cleveland, Ohio, the district actually had to rewrite certain curriculums because of how much time teachers got back in the classroom. Up until that point, they'd had to fight a cell phone battle as class started and then given up to cell phones in the last 15 minutes. Once those 2 times were given back to teachers, they recognized they'd gained so much time back, they could cover so much more ground, they had to add and slightly rewrite what the teaching lesson plans looked like. The next slide is kind of just highlighting the different articles that have covered Yonder to this point. Probably one of the strongly worded ones was a Washington Post article that just covered the experiences that 2 schools in Connecticut and Massachusetts saw. We can jump down to the next slide. This is kind of more the nuts and bolts of our program. So what we include: student pouches, medical pouches, training support, and then curriculum resources, things I've covered already. We're coming to the end of the presentation, and so happy to open up the floor. And if there are questions or you'd like more clarity about a certain topic that I spoke of, happy to see if I can fill in any gaps in what Yonder is, how we support schools, what our program includes, and the benefits our school partners have seen.
All right, board members, do you have any questions? Ms. Craybill.
Yes, sir. I understand from my colleagues in Brunswick County that during their presentation, they got to handle and look at one of these things. So I was wondering, if you have one that you can share with us so we can look at it while we're evaluating. And also was told that they had a sample, you gave them a sample template on the policy that you suggested that they use. And so I asked to see that, and they said that you had that. So how can we get, so that we can, adequately evaluate your product, how can we get those two items?
Yeah, so the first one, that sample, I'm happy to send. I'm happy to get that over to you in hopefully about a week or whatever standard shipping is coming from New Jersey. The second side of it is we do try to hold our knowledge kind of as we value it fairly highly. So we usually share that with partners we're in current contract with. What I can share is the policies that other districts have shared publicly, and they've all utilized Yonder's expertise, knowledge, and resources to create those policies. But the specific resources, we really prefer to share with partners we've entered into contract with, creating more value for those partners.
Dr. Morris?
I've got two children. One of them is very responsible, and the other one can't find their shoes from day to day. When you say that there are $30 per student, is that cover one pouch per applicable student, or how much do you find that you have to do over for the ones that get lost, stolen, broken?
Yeah, so that cost is kind of our initial cost. Pricing discounts happen with volume, of course, so we don't have to keep that as a hard and fast number. And yes, to back up students, if things are lost, we recommend districts create some sort of fee behind kind of replacing that lost item. But the last thing is, when it comes to losing something, and I want to hear your opinion here, does that student who loses everything, did they lose their cell phone that often?
Maybe.
Some do.
Yeah, maybe.
Mine has.
Some do.
Yeah.
But I see your point. But I was more concerned about the maybe willful losing of said pouch as well.
Yes, so that is the second side of it. So we first identified that true forgetfulness happens all the time, but probably the rarest thing it happens with modern teenagers are their cell phone. And so we see a very interesting thing happen. Once the cell phone's in the pouch longer than 30 or 40 minutes, students developing a very strong psychological connection between pouch and phone. And anytime they pick their phone up to go to school, they also will think of the pouch they have to put it in. And so this does come back to a policy consideration. We find a highly effective policy that is well messaged that says to students, you value holding on to your phone. The possession of your phone is very important to you. And we want you to maintain that privilege. Now, the only way to maintain that privilege is by coming to school with your pouch every single day. If you come to school with the pouch or you willfully lose the pouch and we see the phone, that is the one time when we will confiscate the phone and hold it in the office until either a parent or guardian comes and gets it or until the end of the day. And now, protection is worth a lot more than, which is why I go back to that messaging side of it. Once students are very aware of what their expectations are and how they get to keep their phone on them consistently, a very high compliance rate with that policy.
Barnhart?
Were all of the districts that you've utilized this in, were they already utilizing one-to-one devices? Or were?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
But not historically, no.
Ms. Bradford?
I'm going to piggyback on that. We had some comments earlier in our call to audience about students who have their one-to-one device, which we do in the schools, and that students can make phone calls on those devices the same as on a telephone. And so I guess I'd ask Ms. Brinson, in our school district, can students make phone calls on the school-issued laptop, and are students allowed to use their own laptop in the school, or iPad, or whatever?
So at the middle schools and high schools where we have issued one-to-one devices, we actually have turned off the bring your own device network. So those students cannot connect a personal device to our network. However, if they have a cell phone, they're using the cell phone carrier. They're not using our network anyway.
To middle and high.
Now, as far as making phone calls from the laptop, there's probably a lot of applications that we'd have to look and see. I wouldn't feel comfortable saying an answer either way. I'd say we could look into it.
Ms. Walker?
I just had a question because I was looking at the white paper. It looks at two studies, one in Spain, one in the UK, and it really just addresses an actual ban of cell phones, not necessarily putting it in a bag. I guess they're kind of similar, but some of the things that they address in one of the studies is it's a modest size sample. I mean, I imagine if any student is not on their cell phone, it's going to be not a distraction. And I just wonder if there are other ways to do that besides purchasing bags. And I don't know, I mean, if the white papers are talking about just a ban, you know, that's what they're looking at. I don't think they were looking at putting it in a bag. I don't know. I don't know. I think we should discuss other methods. Yeah, you know, I mean, I'm open to handling it, looking at it or whatever, but I mean, it's an expense. I'm not sure all parents would be too happy with it either. That's what we need to get feedback. I just think our next safety meeting, we talk about that.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Mr. McManus?
I think we're meeting with the principals here not too far from tonight, and I think it's important that we get the input from the administrators. For those of you who've never been a high school principal, particularly with 2,000 plus students, you need to understand that the most difficult thing to do is to enforce any policy, because teachers are thrown in the mix of I'm going to be the bad guy or the good guy. So Ms. Bradford takes their phones, I don't. Or I don't as often, Ms. Bradford. It's like a tardy policy. 3 seconds late, bam, I'm going to write you up for tardy. I mean, you've got to be reasonable. It falls on the principal and it falls on the superintendent, acting or not. So if you're going to have, and I support it right now, this discussion, because I truly believe it disrupts the school. I go in the schools a lot, and I made a living in the schools, and I can tell you that students will just park across the street and watch the kids when they change classes. They're on their phone. They're in the classes. It's almost impossible for a teacher to teach and maintain some type of academic decorum and then try to find cell phones. They got them between their legs, they got them under their arms, they drop them, they pass them around. It's one of the worst social issues I've ever seen. Then we found out about, of course, the sex, texting, et cetera. But if we're going to do it, we've got to make sure we discuss it and it is enforced. Because you can't have one principal at one school absolutely making the teachers and everyone enforce it, and then you got a principal in another school that's not doing it. That will not work. And so the cost of the expense, if we go into this, if you ban them, you can ban them. I know parents get upset, but we've got buttons in the rooms, and kids don't need, I heard a parent say, bless her heart, if we got a shutdown, practice shutdown, I want to know. Well, they don't need to know a practice shutdown to be on the news in 2 seconds. Plus, there's no one endangered. Just you're going to have to make it very serious if you're going to do it. And I'd like to have the principal's input about what they think about it as well.
I have one more question for you. We're talking about cell phones, obviously, on the hip or whatever else. But, in today's world, there's Apple Watches. My children talk all the time on their Apple Watches. So what does your company do about those? You just put those in the bag too, or?
That's our rough solution, yeah. So here's a quick demo. I don't have a watch on me, unfortunately, but as far as the size of the bag goes, here's one phone. That's my demo phone. And then here's a second phone that can go in the bag. And then here is a case that I can add as well, just for personal devices. So that's an AirPod case that goes in. And so this is the profile of the bag with those 3 items in there. We see most schools and districts kind of create a personal device policy where all those things are expected to go in the bag.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions, board members?
For them.
For him.
Yeah.
Going once, going twice. We do thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you for the chance to speak, and I'll get that sample sent over shortly.
Thank you very much. Okay. Board members, we want to continue the conversation at this time about cell phones. Ms. Mason?
I do recall, I know Ms. Walker brought up, are there other options? I do recall that we do have a student who developed a program. One of our student voice students developed a program that was more of an incentive program for kids to put their phones down. And so I would love to hear from him as well. It's been a minute since we've seen him, but, and I can't recall the name of the program, but what was it?
It was like, turn it off or something. Samina, did it.
Yeah.
Sabin.
But it was a great program that he was showing me, but it would be great for us to see that as well as another possible option.
Yeah, it's always good to have a positive spin to it. Yes.
I would love to explore options, especially ones that don't necessarily cost us, money, because I know we're very tight on money in our budget. But I would love to talk about, get input, as Mr. McManus said, and really think about this hard. I think it's a benefit for the distraction not to be there. I think parents would probably worry a little bit if they were actually removed completely and put in a bag and put away. If we all went back to flip phones, I guess that would be a good solution. That's not going to happen. But no, this is a very robust discussion we should definitely be having, and how we just stop the distraction, more than anything, because I think that would help kids focus. And I know I'm a different generation, but we didn't have to worry about that. It's a new thing. It's newish thing for students to have to deal with. I don't blame them. You're constantly getting buzzed or called, you're going to be wanting to pay attention to that, and it becomes kind of an addictive thing.
Well, and I think, it is very important to, next week to hear from our town hall folks, because I think that'll be a real important topic. Ms. Bradford?
It'd be nice to hear from a school that's actually doing it. The stats that they gave, impact on behavior, was upwards of 40%. That was a surprise. That was pretty impressive. I would like to hear from as many options as we can possibly pull together here so that we make the right decision and don't, have a false start kind of deal. That would be bad. One of the things that I did as we were investigating as a committee was I looked at alternative funding sources. The typical ones, obviously, is we can ask the endowment, we can ask the county, we can go after lottery funds, we can ask the General Assembly. But the one I came to sort of land on is DPI has the Center for Safer Schools grant program, and that cycle has not yet opened, or it just opened. And I don't know what we're currently applying for under that cycle. But it's $35 million in school safety grants awarded to 230 schools, K through 12 schools last year, and charter schools. So that would be the first place I'd say, let's ask them. And if we have an ask, let's just add this to the ask. I'm not saying bump whatever we're currently asking for, but just add it to. And I did this estimate on the number that he had given us, which was $25.50 per bag, but he did say it was negotiable. The other thing that was really fascinating to me was, I had said here, and what we discussed is, I don't know if we want to start with the middle or the high schools, but the stats on the improvement in the high school were staggering. In the 10th grade, up 4.42%, the 11th grade, up 6.25%, 12th grade, 4.78%. So now I kind of have a feeling that that's where I would be interested in starting, is in the high school, the traditional high schools, and I broke this down by that. So I'm intrigued. And if they're using it at the Wilson Center, I'd like to ask whoever at the Wilson Center, why'd you pick these? How's it going? And so on.
Ms. Graybill?
Yeah, so couple things. I did run the numbers really quick, and if we're talking about the whole school system, it's $765,000, which we don't have. If we're talking about just middle schools, it's $171,000, which we don't have. High schools, it would be $234,500, which we don't have. So I just wanted to show you another option that I brought from home, that I know many of us probably have these, that these are less than $25 and will take a whole class. And this is something that Mr. Haas at Harvard tried to use at Harvard when he was there. And it sort of worked, but he said that enforcement was like horrendous. So, and to Ms. Bradford's question, the middle schools, all the middle schools are using something. And I have several copies of the ones that they have in play, if you would like for me to email those over to you, or we can ask those questions at the principal meeting. But oftentimes it's not just the principal who's handling the issues, it's the assistant principals. So, we might want to hear from them as well. The other thing too that I had just for I was looking at other alternatives for funding, and the Safer Schools grant is not an option because it's really only for SROs and safety equipment like AI phones. And at the conference that I was just at, the RISE conference, from Safer Schools Center from DPI, said that would definitely be so far down the list we would never get it, because there are so many schools that need other safety equipment there. And the SRO grant is coming out, and Mr. Silverstein can talk to us about that, but that's coming out, but it's only for SROs. We are not eligible this go-round for the safety equipment, so it wouldn't be applicable here. And it's landfall, their capital grants are for major equipment. This is not considered major equipment. I touched base with the people over there. And lottery funds are really only for school construction. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Anderson, but it was like for school instruction, based on financial need. We apply for that all the time, but we're too rich, to get those. So but it's for capital improvements, right? It's not for things like this.
So you're correct. Lottery funds are for capital construction.
Yeah, not for cell phone pouches. So, yeah, and I'm just kind of bummed that they weren't here to even let us see the pouch, because the Brunswick County folks, they played with them a little bit while they were there, and they're only doing 2 schools. And the Coast, it's interesting because the Coast is in their pilot, but they were using that like as a discipline punitive thing for the Coast students. They've been doing cell phone restrictions for a couple years now. But so I'm anxious to hear what the principals have to say, especially given the ones that have tried it. And I just wanted to let you know too that Representative John Torbett from Gaston County spoke at the RISE conference this past week. And I asked specifically about where's the General Assembly in lawmaking on cell phones. And he said, well, the jury is out on that they can't come to any agreement, and they are not interested right now in doing any legislative until school systems have had a chance to, local districts have had a chance, because the majority of the folks there, he said, really felt that, school level decisions should be made at the school level and not in the General Assembly. So, so those are some of the kinds of things. I know Ms. Bradford had given us a sample policy too, I think, from her EGMMS. I tried to look that up, but I didn't know what school district that was from. Okay, so someone gave it to us. But the other thing that really stands out the most to me is that one of the first things that our acting superintendent did was actually weigh in on something that when he had read, and he sent us all, an email about let's pump the brakes, let's look more specifically. So, we elected, to put him there. And so I think his opinion is just as valuable. And apparently there's a draft document out there somewhere that maybe we all should take a look at before we start, rolling out. Maybe we share that with the principals. I've not seen the draft document, but it says there's a cell phone draft document out there. And I think that's what Dr. Barnes was responding to.
Ms. Barnhart, thank you, Ms. Grable.
Thank you, Mr. Wildeboer. It's my understanding that this is under information, so we're not voting on this right now. It's just an idea presentation to have the conversation to support our administrators with discipline in regards to cell phone use. And I know one of the things prior to the implementation of one-to-one devices, cell phones were utilized for academic purposes. And that was an option that teachers could use to enhance their lessons. Now, that no longer being the case, we as a board can reevaluate with the input from our staff how we can best move forward with this. And so I think right now we do not have a cell phone policy in place as a district expectation. I would personally like to see a tiered policy, given feedback from our administrators at our pre-K and elementary level, middle school and high school level, and expectation, given their feedback. I spoke with Ms. Clark at large when I was the policy chairwoman about the cell phone policy, and she gave me a copy of all the middle school policies. They mimic a lot of things, but feedback from other schools that are not in the middle school unit said it would be a good idea to have a consistent district expectation. So if we come together to present that uniform front. I think that could help support our staff. And I don't believe that the first step would be to purchase these right now. That's something we could reevaluate at a later time. I believe the first step would be to implement a district-wide policy with a tiered system in place of self and expectation.
Ms. Mason.
And to kind of piggyback off of that, I had the opportunity to meet with Ms. Brinson last week to discuss some of the technology policies, and hopefully those will be, sorry to put you on the spot, hopefully those will be discussed at the next policy committee meeting.
Excellent. Very, very good. All right. Well, we'll close that conversation. Thank you, board members, for that very robust conversation. And again, we will be talking more about that at the town hall next week. Our next item of business is consensus items. Do I hear a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the consensus items as presented, excuse me.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Passes 7-0. Don't believe we have anything under old business. I think we do have now an MOU under, where is my paper? Right here it is. Under new business. That's the MOU from the county commissioners. Do you want to kind of give an overview of that, Dr. Barnes or Ms. Bradford?
Ms. Walker and I both
Ms. Walker?
observed it. The county has offered us an MOU for disaster relief in the event we have a disaster, because we know that our fund balance would not cover a disaster, and we're going to need to start spending money day one if there were, say, a catastrophic event tonight while we're sleeping. And the county manager and Dr. Barnes have finalized it. They voted on it yesterday, a unanimous vote. And they mentioned a couple times while they were doing it that we want to get this done because we have a storm coming. It's up to, I think, $10 million. But they said they wouldn't tie our hands at that number because we know how much money we spent, in the last big event. It's kind of a win-win. The thing that I asked Dr. Barnes how he felt about it, and he said he was fine, and he can speak for himself. What would happen is Dr. Barnes would not be calling contractors or or Eddie calling contractors, but the county would take over that responsibility. They would handle everything, including the reimbursements from the insurance agencies and the government and so on. So it would make it a lot easier for us if we did have, and we really don't have any other options. So I'm going to move that we accept it.
Is there a second? First and second, any further discussion? Ms.
Yeah,
Walker?
we haven't seen it at all. Oh, sorry, Ms. I defer.
I was there listening to that, and I think that part of the things I took from that was that we do not have a fund balance, which means we do not have an emergency fund, which means, I know in 2018 when Florence hit, we did have to spend out a lot because it takes years to get reimbursement from FEMA, et cetera, and we had a lot of damage. I know Trask practically was totally redone. So I think this is a way for them to just say, we have your back financially. I mean, obviously statutorily, they are obligated to take care of our buildings, and the fact that we don't have a fund balance, which they said a few times, we asked them to spend it down, and they did. And now that we don't have it, they want to make sure we're covered. And the 10 million was just, I think, just a way to put a number on it, but it was reiterated, as Ms. Bradford said, that they wouldn't deny more than that. They just wanted to just set a number. But I'm not sure we have to vote on it. I guess, I'm okay to vote on it if it's, symbolic, but do we have to?
It's a memorandum of agreement between our two agencies, so we would have to approve it as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, may I make a substitute motion? Maybe have a 10-minute recess, so for the individuals who have not seen the document, have time to look it over
See if I
and
can find
then
it.
vote. I know it's on there. I seconded it, but.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if you have any, over here.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Hey,
I heard
sorry.
his voice from the great beyond.
I was gonna say, it was a pretty short memorandum. It was 8 pages, and I took a quick look at it. If you want me to tell you what the kind of the big moving parts are real quickly.
If you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
Mr. Chair?
Would it be, is that digital? Like, is there any way we can get it on the screen or no? Or share it with other folks?
I got it by email. I don't know how
May I
to.
make a substitute motion to move this vote to the second consensus item on our agenda so that it would give time for everybody to see it?
Yeah.
I make a substitute motion to postpone this vote to later on in the agenda under consensus item number 17.
Okay, is there a second on that? Okay. The first and second, so basically this is just delaying the vote until our second consensus items. So it would be under B, under personnel report. Any discussion of that?
Can we instruct the attorneys how to get it over to them so they can get it on the screen and we
Yeah.
can all read it?
And I think it would behoove us to
We've
hear
got
from
it.
the attorney.
I'm emailing it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
But I still think, so at that point, we can go ahead and hear from the attorneys on that, if you don't mind. Okay. So we have,
I'm sorry, I believe it's very similar to the one I emailed you last Thursday.
It's true, it is.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on postponing it until item B under consensus, part B? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries 7-0. Nothing else under new business, so we are on Legion Stadium report. Ms. Walker.
I will do my best. I mean, I took these notes when I was there, and I will do my best. So we met, the Legion Stadium Committee met on, what date was that, when we met? On July 25th, at the city Skyline Center. And we talked about, what was on the agenda was the turf update, synthetic turf update for Legion Stadium, which, and then also, we discussed a capital improvement plan, a 5-year capital improvement plan that would encompass obviously the 3 organizations, which is the schools, the city, and the county, since we all kind of share, space and money and, repairs. So we met, we got an update on the turf. And I really wish we could, if I'd have thought about it, I'd have asked for them to put, because
great picture.
WECT has done a little video on it, and I think the city of Wilmington did a flyover with a drone. It's definitely worth looking at because it's very beautiful. The turf it got completed July 9th, my birthday, so that was a happy birthday to me. It came in under cost. I think the original bid, that it was accepted was $690,000. It came to $494,546, which allows us to, and I think we agreed as a committee to use the rest of that money for whatever repairs we could do, which are going to be in the capital improvement plan that we'll come up with probably at the next meeting. Let's see. The turf got a lifespan. I believe they said 8 to 10 years. Well, maybe longer, hopefully, depending on how it's used, because Hanover's not the only organization that uses it. But the turf was sewn in. It was not, I think, painted. So it is beautiful. It's got the Hanover logo in the middle and the end zones, that's all sewn in. And it's got lines for, if I'm thinking about it right, lacrosse and I think maybe soccer as well.
Could be soccer.
Football, yes, of course, originally for football, but it's got other lines that are drawn in, that are sewn in there for other sports. We are hoping that we can get a ribbon cutting for it because I know we got to celebrate the good things. Hanover definitely needs some love. And hopefully, I think Amy Beatty at the city was going to look into whether we can all, in a football game, just come and, cut a ribbon and just celebrate something really good for the school and the students and the athletes. So that is the update on the turf. I definitely recommend anybody out there just Google searching the stadium and seeing how pretty it is. The second, like I said, part of our agenda was a recommendation for a 5-year capital improvement plan. When it deals with Legion, Robert Strange, and Buck Hardy Field, which are the 3 fields that we share. I don't think I'm leaving out one of the other fields.
And just if I could, Robert Strange is used by Williston for baseball and for softball.
Right, good, thank you. Yeah, I wrote that down. Yeah, so we want to come up with some improvements because there are some, we did get a presentation, which I'd be happy to share with anybody that wants to look at it, that talks about the improvement plans. I did take notes in there. There are definitely some things that we need to address when it comes to the area around Legion, including, but not limited to, tearing down the big fire brick building. I don't know if you've seen that. They used to use it. Yeah, the fire tower, removal.
Also updating concession that's in there, modernizing the fixtures and equipment, the parking lot improvements for the complex near Buck Hardy pool, in the pool, and the tennis and the pickleball. And I think one of the small ones was putting a handrail that's missing in the stadium as well. Field improvements, synthetic turf for the infield, new dugouts, and fence relocation for Buck Hardy Field. So there's quite a few. There's a lot on here. I'm happy to share that. If anybody wants to look at it, I can forward you the whole presentation, and then you can see. But next meeting, I think that's what we're going to really kind of address, a kind of 5-year plan. So any questions, let me know.
Any questions, board members? Good job. Very good job. We will carry on next with the curriculum committee update.
Okay, I think Dr. Barnes touched on this, but the second annual coffee, curriculum, and conversation session for our school families will be held on September 16th at the Board of Education building. This is the place for parents to come to find out about the curriculum. So if you want to know about the curriculum, this would be the place to come. Last year, we had over 100 parents do the pop-in. It's a pop-in. It doesn't start at this time and end at this time. It's to come, and you can speak one-on-one with different educators. There will be coffee, snacks, and conversation, and representatives from the curriculum team, special ed, technology, CTE, child nutrition, Parent and Caregivers Academy will be here to discuss curriculum with the parents. This is the time to come to see the curriculum. 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., 2 different times, same day. And Spanish translation will be available. So there you go. Everyone come.
All right, thank you. At this point, we are ready to go into a closed session. I would entertain a motion to go to closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 318, 11C for the following purposes: to consult with the attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the board, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of employment, and conditions of an initial employment of an individual employed or considered for employment with the school system, and or to hear or investigate a complaint, charge, or grievance by or against any individual employee. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
First and second, any discussion? Not all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Did I hear one? Not? Okay, we're in closed session. bump everything back one day? Yeah, so we'll do Thursday, Friday, Friday, Saturday. We have an alternative. Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. One, two, three, four, that's four of us. Okay, we're back in open session. Welcome back. We do have two pieces of work to finish. And my computer's not up, so I'm looking for the consensus item personnel report. Do I have a motion to accept the personnel report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I will second, but I want to amend it.
Okay.
I want to accept both the personnel report and the MOU with the county, because those are the two consensus items.
Okay.
Okay, second, yes.
First and second, we have amended motion. There he is, motion. Yeah, there is. Okay, any discussion on it?
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Grable?
I'm in favor of doing it, but I am just need to call us back to how many times have we complained that we had to vote on something we didn't see? So I read it, in the amount of time, but I just don't think we need to do things on the fly like that. Just point of order, but.
Thank you, ma'am. I do agree that it's a lot better when you have it a couple days earlier.
Yeah, or even just the morning of, to read it.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we have a motion to accept both the personnel report and the MOU between us and the county. We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. That passes 7-0. Next, we have correspondence. I'm going to have to pull this up. Correspondence. Does anybody have any correspondence they'd like to share? Ms. Graybill.
I'll go like 3 seconds. I just wanted to say that last week, the DPI, the Center for Safer Schools, had their annual safety summit, and I attended that along with some folks from our school district. Chuck Silverstein was there, Julie Varnum and several of her staff were there, and we got to hear information, and I'll send you the handouts when they become available, but talked about things about the Safer Schools grant. We talked about the gang and gun safety, talked about discipline reports and how we report, and we actually got compliments on the way we report, because Julie is so thorough. But I just wanted to, and there were all of the people that attended from New Hanover County Schools, with me, would make excellent subject matter experts for our subcommittees because of all, the topics lined up perfectly with some of the things we were hearing. So I just wanted to throw that back out and encourage us all, since we are a whole board committee, that we really need to attend more PD kind of stuff on the work that we're trying to write policies on. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Thank you, Ms. Graybill. Anyone else have any?
I make a motion to recess until.
Oh, no, I got announcements first. All right, so quick announcements. Policy Committee will be holding a Policy Committee meeting on Tuesday, August 20th, 2024 at 10 a.m. in the Board of Education Center. General public has the option to view remotely on NHCS TV, YouTube. The board will hold an agenda meeting on Monday, August 26, 2024 at 5 p.m. No, not 5 p.m., 2 p.m. Yep, I got that there. At 2 p.m. at the Board of Education Center, the general public will have the option to view remotely on New Hanover County Schools YouTube, and the August regular board meeting will be held on Tuesday, the September regular board meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the Board of Education Center. General public will have the option to view remotely on the New Hanover County Schools TV, YouTube. Now,
I make a motion to recess.
we have a motion to recess. Is there a second? We have first and second. Any discussion? All in favor of recessing at this time, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? We are in recess.